Hey guys, it's Lance at Max Sound Solutions, and today I am probably doing my very final upgrade to my Mac Pro 5.1, which is installing this, a black box. Actually, it's an RX6800XT, which is sold by Sonnet Technologies. They make like USB-C cards and eGPUs, but I think this is their first foray into selling GPUs. An RX6800XT was never going to work in a Mac Pro 5.1, but thanks to Syncretic, I think I'm finally saying his name correctly, he created a patch to be able to patch the ROM on these cards so that it will boot in a Mac Pro 5.1. So there's basically three things you have to do if you want to run an RX6800XT or an RX6900XT. Number one, you have to be running Opencore with Big Sur or Monterey. Number two, you have to flash the card with Syncretic's Patcher tool. Number three, you got to do the PIXLAS mod because there is not enough power being supplied by the two mini 6-pin connectors that are normally used for your GPU in your Mac Pro. You have to tap into that 950 watt power supply directly and do the PIXLAS mod. I have the instructions in the links below on how to do the PIXLAS mod. I followed the House of Moth's instructions. He has a blog and he has a video on how to do it, so there's no reason for me to repeat what he has done. Again, you got to patch the card in a Windows computer or a Mac Pro 7.1 running Windows. You cannot do it with a Mac Pro 5.1 running Windows. So when you take your graphics card to your buddy's house with the Windows computer, you got to make sure it's got the correct power connections also, which is dual 8-pin. So I was able to do it at my friend's place, pull out his Titan and put this in, run the Patcher tool, bingo. And then voila, it now shows up in my Mac Pro 5.1. Now, the other thing to know is the XT models eat into your second slot. So you lose your second 16 times slot. You could just get the RX6800 and supposedly not have to do the PIXLAS mod. It runs off the internal power supply and it doesn't eat into the second PCIe slot. So it'll be interesting to see somebody who just went for that card and see what kind of scores they get compared to the scores I'm getting. It'll be interesting how this card performs because, you know, it's a 10-year-old computer. You're using the 10-year-old CPU and you're using PCIe 2.0. These cards are PCIe 4.0, and obviously a modern day CPU combined with this card is going to perform better than it will in the Mac Pro 5.1. So is it worth spending the money to get one of these cards? That's the question. I think my Mac Pro 5.1 will be running faster than it ever has. It won't be as fast as a PC or a Mac Pro 7.1 running with this card, but it will be faster than my Mac Pro using the 5700 XT. That card I was able to power off the internal power supply. I did not have to do the PIXLAS mod for the 5700 XT. And the PIXLAS mod always kind of scared me, you know, just tapping into your Mac Pro's power supply. And actually, when I first ran a game on this card, not when I first booted up, but when I first really taxed the card, I think it was Doom Eternal. I smelled like burning plastic. I'm like, oh no, what, do I have a fire in my Mac Pro? Is something melting? But it really was just an initial burn-in on the graphics card because it doesn't smell that way anymore, and I didn't see anything melted or any char marks anywhere, thank God. So let's get to the benchmarks. So in Geekbench, in the metal score, we are getting almost twice the speed with the RX6800XT than the RX5700XT. So that is a big leap. And in OpenCL, not quite as big of a leap, but the RX6800XT is still way on top. And here in Lexmark, the RX6800XT is getting a whopping 55,890. And this is not an overclocked GPU, this is the reference clock speeds. And in Windows, we get an even higher score of 58,346. So here are a couple of results from the Lexmark website, and the top result is from an RX6800XT. It's got a slightly higher clock speed than my stock card, and it's getting 60,000 and I'm getting 58,000. So, you know, old Mac Pro is keeping up with those results. Then below that is the 6900XT. It's got 40 compute units instead of 36, and it's got the same clock speed as mine, but it's getting a higher score. But it is a 6900XT. And here are the other two benchmarks you can run in Lexmark: the microphone, the Neumann, and the hotel lobby. So again, pretty good scores. And when you run this benchmark, you can see the processor really gets maxed out on the GPU. Whereas when you're editing in Final Cut Pro X, no matter what I did, I could not get my processor to go over 15, maybe 20% usage, but I don't even think it hit 20%. I was rendering out an 8K file. It uses the GPU's VRAM a lot, but it's really not accessing the processor as much as you would like. Apple sells these really expensive GPUs for the Mac Pro 7.1, and in Final Cut, it's just not really utilizing it as much as you would like. Maybe in DaVinci Resolve, you'll get better results. For all that money, come on, Apple, let's pump up that GPU. Final Cut seems to really be more CPU-based than GPU-based, so all the marketing of using metal and all of that seems to be a little bit of a mumbo-jumbo. And thanks to Opencore, we have hardware acceleration with this video card in our Mac Pro 5.1, so that speeds up the rendering process. So check this out. Here is a RX6800XT's metal score running in a Mac Pro 7.1. This is like your average score, 150,000. I'm getting 147,000. And, you know, basically it's smoking the Apple M1 Ultra, and it's in a 12-year-old computer. You know, it's just a shame that Apple won't let you use an eGPU with the M1s, because even though you got 32 cores or 64-core GPU in these M1 Ultras, they are not good for gaming. Okay, let's move on to gaming. In Shadow of the Tomb Raider, oddly enough, I'm getting slightly higher frame rates under macOS running Metal than I am in DirectX 12 under Windows, but only really in the benchmark. Pretty much the same settings, although Windows does have more settings, and you can turn ray tracing on, which definitely drops you down about 10 frames a second, but I did not have that on during my test. And if you look at GPU bound, it's super low. It's 0% and 7% under macOS, and I believe what this means is the GPU is not the bottleneck here, but the CPU is the bottleneck. Even though the benchmark in macOS seems a little higher than Windows, the gameplay is still better in Windows. And actually, during the game, I'm getting higher FPS than I am in macOS. I don't know what's going on with the benchmark. It's just a little weird to me. I can set it to 1080, 1440. It doesn't seem to make a difference. I'm always getting the same results or very close to it. So there's something funny going on with the benchmark. But in gameplay at 1440p in Windows, as you can see, I'm getting like 120 frames per second. Sometimes it goes down to 60. Usually when you're in the outdoor environment, you're getting lower frame rates. But overall, gameplay is perfectly fine with Shadow of the Tomb Raider running under Windows. Ouch, sorry, Laura. And in Doom Eternal, I'm averaging about 150 frames per second at 2K. So yeah, you can game with a Mac Pro 5.1 and an RX 6800 XT. You know, if you're just into 1080p gaming, the 6600 XT is probably a good choice, and you don't have to do any power mods, and you'll save like $300 to $400. Okay, and here is the old iconic Heaven benchmark. I'm running at 2K. And everything's on ultra except for tensillation is on normal, and I'm getting 85.6 frames per second. A 6800 XT is only a little slower than the 6900 XT, but it also depends on what computer you put these cards in. And here we can look at the Apple M1 Max, 32 cores, The 6800 XT absolutely blows that out of the water. But this benchmark here is based on the Mac Pro 7 one, not the 5 one. So is the RX6800 XT a good investment at $700? Plus you have to flash the GPU, do the PIXLAS mod, have Opencore running. You know, if you have a Mac Pro 5.1 already and you want to keep going and get the most performance you possibly can, you can install one of these GPUs. Financially, is it a good decision? It's up in the air. Really depends on what you do with your computer. And obviously, if it's in a modern day computer, the GPU is going to perform better. So we really got to thank Syncretic, Martin Lowe, and all the Opencore developers. These guys have kept our Mac Pros alive in the year 2022, still running the modern OS. Ventura might be the very end of the road, though. I mean, we might be stuck in Monterey for the rest of the use of these computers because Ventura's got some serious roadblock issues for the old Mac Pro 5.1s, and we may never get to run that OS. But, you know, if I can squeak another year or two out of this computer and not have to buy something new, that would be great. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me the thumbs up. I appreciate you watching and making it to the end of the video, and I will see you on the next Mac Sound Solutions video.